Number 4, I can't count. Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha back with another video. I know it has been a minute, but I am here. Thank you so much for your patience for those who have stuck around this whole time. As you can see, we're in different surroundings, so a few things happened since my last video, including moving. Oh wow, little voice crack there. Puberty, it never ends. So thanks so much for waiting for this video. I just thought since the last video I did that had to do with jobs and employment was really well received, I would do another one that kind of talks about jobs because I think it's on the minds of a lot of people right now. There's a lot changing in the world, and I think people are going to definitely be looking at different areas of employment in the near future. So after having an experience with one of my friends who had this particular dilemma, I thought I would make a video about it because I think it's something that a lot of people wonder about, but they're not quite sure what to do. And that is whether or not you should take a risky job versus staying with a stable, familiar job that you might be at right now. So this is a question you've ever asked yourself in the past or you're wondering about it now. Please continue to watch this video because I'm going to go through 5 areas that I think that everyone should consider when they're thinking of making this decision. So we'll be looking at 5 areas that I think will really help people to really weigh out in their mind what they think is the best thing to do for them. And that just kind of rolls into the disclaimer that I want to put on this video, which is that this is just based on my own personal experience as well as some research that I've done. This is not going to be a catch-all for everyone's situation. Obviously, you're going to have to weigh that against your own personal situation. If you've got a family that you've got to support or other types of financial responsibilities, all those things are very important to consider. But I'm just putting some things out there on the table that could hopefully help you make the right decision for you. With that out of the way, let's get into the 5 areas right about now. The first one is salary. So obviously, I'm not talking about a salary increase because I feel like almost everybody would feel like that's a positive in the direction of a risky job, right? If a new job comes along and they're like, hey, we're going to pay you double, that's never a bad thing, right? Who doesn't want to make more money? It's more if potentially this new job is offering you maybe the same salary that you're making now or not too much more than it, or maybe even a little less. So you might be looking at me like, girl, hear me out. There are some situations where taking a little bit of a pay cut, and I mean a little bit, I'm not talking like getting half of what you make now, but if it's maybe a few $1,000s less, or as I said, at the same salary you're at, there are a few things you might want to look at before you completely dismiss this as a potential job opportunity. One of them could be if you really hate where you're at right now. Like if your current job is literally like your own personal version of hell every single day, that's not good for you mentally or emotionally, especially with all that's going on right now. You don't need any extra stress that comes in the way of your day-to-day, I need to do this to survive job. So if that's what's going on, if you're in a toxic environment, or one that's just not really working for you, even if you don't necessarily make more money right off the bat, moving to a different position could do wonders for you on many other ways outside of money. The second thing might be that the company is offering you other things in compensation for having a lower salary. So for example, some jobs will match on your retirement program, right? So in Canada, your RRSPs, or in the US, the 401ks, they might match your company. Some companies match like everything you pay into it by 50% or even 100%. Or maybe they might offer you stock options. They might also have bonuses and things like that. I know some companies, their base salary is lower because they're going to give you a bonus at the end of the year, which is quite nice that you can use for whatever you want. So you get my point. Sometimes there's other benefits outside of money. So I would say it's definitely worth taking a look into what other options that the company has, not to mention further income potential, right? Maybe that salary they're offering you right now is lower than what you have or at the same rate, but the potential for you to make more at that job might be significantly more than where you're at right now. So those are some things you might want to think of before you completely dismiss the idea of making less money or equal to what you're making right now. On to the second area, which is job satisfaction. Again, I feel like this is such an underrated area. I think so many people just dismiss this as something that's not important. And depending on when your parents were raised, they might have given you the speech about how how much, loving your job is not important. It's more important to make money. You got to support yourself. Work is supposed to be work. And I mean, listen, that is true to an extent in that we all do have to work in order to survive. However, if you hate your job, or worse, don't feel like you're doing anything to actually contribute, whether that's to a cause you believe in, or to the company you work for, or on a larger scale to the world, that really does affect you mentally over time. There's a huge difference in how much you will enjoy work if you actually feel like you're doing satisfying, fulfilling work every single day. So if the job that you're potentially considering, this risky job, actually gives you an opportunity to do something that's more fulfilling for you, whether it's in the type of work you're doing or even the environment you're in, all that wraps into how fulfilling your job can and should be. And that should be a real factor you're considering, that maybe the job you're at is stable and pays well, but if it's not really fulfilling for you and you don't really enjoy your time there, is it really the best place for you to stay? The third area is career growth or leapfrogging. And if you don't know what leapfrogging is, pardon me, I'm not talking about the actual game of leapfrog, which is super fun. The idea, of course, is actually jumping potentially the queue in your career. And the way things used to go in a lot of careers is that you'd have to kind of go down this very steady, defined path for your career growth. But that is kind of going the way of the dodo, thank goodness, because there are people out there who are just really, really good at their jobs, or have just put a lot of extra effort and time, or taken on a lot of more responsibilities in order to grow and learn and be more capable of what they're doing. So to have them go through this rigid path of growth that doesn't necessarily fit them if they are more ambitious, or as I said, they just happen to be really good at it, that just doesn't make sense anymore. So if the current company that you're at has a path that doesn't necessarily work for your time frame or for your development, you should be looking to see if potentially this risky job is going to allow you to do that. I feel like if you've got the skills, the drive, and all the other things to move into a different position, you should be able to take advantage of that. Number 4 is connections. I always take a little bit of a LinkedIn creep at any company that I'm looking at potentially working for, so I can see the kind of people that are working there. Now, of course, this doesn't always pan out, because sometimes you get some companies where a lot of the employees, for some reason, decide to make their LinkedIn profiles private. But most companies nowadays, they do have at least, I'd say, 40 to 50% of their workforce has a LinkedIn profile. And the great thing about this is that you can kind of see the type of people who work there, the caliber of them. You get to see how big their networks are, depending on how public their profile is, of course. And the point is, there is still very much to the adage of it's who you know, not necessarily what you know when it comes to growing in certain careers. Connections are absolutely mandatory for growing in any field that you go into. The more you know, the more people you know, the more influential people you know, it could definitely change the course of your career for better or worse. So you definitely want to ideally work for a company that will allow you to meet people who not only will help you with your career in the sense of, being able to recommend you to things or open more doors for you, but also for potential mentors. But if you're going to a place where you see that there's a lot of people who have, worked in an area that you're interested in, or who have had a really, really fast career come up, or who have, gotten a lot of awards or accolades or whatever the case may be, usually that kind of lets you know what kind of a environment is fostered at this new company, and more importantly, it will potentially put you in access to these people in a way that would be a lot harder if you weren't working in the same company. In my experience of working in industries as old as oil and gas, which are very old and established, to startup level companies, the difference in the kind of people who work there is literally night and day. So that's something to definitely consider, is like, what kind of work environment will I be putting myself into, and what kind of potential connections could I make by moving from my stable position to something that's a little bit more risky. And the final area is learning experience. This is my favorite area, because I think the biggest fear people have if they move to a position or an area that is considered risky is that, oh my God, what if especially if it's something, let's say that you're right now in a senior position or something of that ilk, and the position is a C-level position or a directorial position or something where you're going to have a lot more responsibilities and a lot more room to fail gloriously. right? One of the things is if you're staying under the radar, if you're staying at a kind of a mediocre pace, it's really easy to kind of dodge and weave any real responsibilities. And yes, it's good in the sense of, okay, no one's really going to come for you when it comes to the blame game, but it's also not something that allows you to really grow and show your best potential, not only to others, but to yourself. So if you move into a position where maybe you're going to be pushed to a new level of difficulty, yes, of course, the opportunities to make a mistake and to fail and to spectacularly fail are going to be increased, but you never actually lose anything by failing. Or even if, let's say you do that, let's say you move into a directorial position or a CEO position from a senior position, and let's say things don't go well. Okay, let's just say that your first major project is a flop and it doesn't go well. Even if that happens, you haven't lost anything. You haven't really failed in anything in the sense of, yes, maybe the project didn't turn out the way you wanted it to or the company was expecting. But you're going to learn so many valuable things from that experience. If you take that time to look at all the things that that particular experience taught you, you're going to be richer, smarter, and better for the next experience. Who doesn't want that? Like, that is the ultimate place to be. You haven't lost. You've gained something that's invaluable. So I feel like that's the biggest thing about taking a risk, because a lot of times the reason things feel risky is because it's outside of our comfort zone. But as many a guru has said, the best and biggest growth you'll ever have in your life happens just outside of that bubble of your comfort zone. You've got to be willing to push that envelope. And yes, I understand in the times that we're living in right now, this might be a little bit too much for some, but if it is something that you have the bandwidth to do or you can find the bandwidth to do, I strongly encourage that you do it. If you've weighed out these 5 areas and found that, more things are tipping towards the risky side, it might just be the one thing that changes your life in so many ways you never even knew were possible. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I just thought I'd share those with you. What do you think of those 5? Are you considering a decision like this right now? If you are, please leave it in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Let's chat about it. Or if you think this video could be helpful to someone else, feel free to share it and like it. And of course, if you like what you see, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button to get notified of more videos. Thanks so much for watching, guys. And until next time, I hope you have a good one.